I don't think we have a precise answer to that, but I think that the hubs are trying to make sure that every family's reached, and they're concentrating on families that are at risk, many of whom don't have insurance. And they described, I think, 5 or 6 million that has been allocated to providing family interventions, state money. But it comes back to the thing that Brad Anderson raised about needing to count all of the sources for funding. So that's not a very good answer, but it's the best I know.
Tony, what did Brad Anderson mean by that?
Well, I think he's repeatedly pointed out that there's a tendency for us to focus on, government money that's going to pay for these services. But there's he works for Kaiser Permanente, and there's people covered in insurance, and the insurance, we need to include what insurance is paying for family services, for treatment of drug abuse as well.
Yeah, the commercial insurance provides the majority of people. However, our authority is limited, right? We can't consistently determine, the 25% of people who are covered by public monies, what the services are. So to expand it even broader without having that base sort of, that we do well with that 25%, it doesn't make sense to me to expand it beyond that, particularly when we don't have authority in that group. We can't tell the private insurers what to do one way or the other. So I get his point. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, the follow-up question to OPEC is, to what extent are they including coverage from insurance?
Well, I don't know that that would not be an important. Let me say it differently. I'd like to know the range of resources to pay for their services, which might include public money, private money.
Good. Okay. I made a note of that. So we get started?
Yeah.
Let me share my version of the agenda, if I may. So we all know each other. Some of us have already discussed our Thanksgiving holiday. Shall we just plunge into work?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. So Tori took notes, and just an enormous amount of information. But Tori, I think you get to summarize it.
Awesome. Well, I will do a much better job at our subcommittee, our prevention subcommittee meeting on Thursday. I will hope to have a visual done as well to explain all that we learned from our meeting with OPEC. OPEC stands for Oregon Parent Education Collaborative, and their mission is to support a network of parenting hubs. They have a vision of all parents having access to parent education, not having access to, but participating in. parent education for all. They feel like it should be a universal support, that it's just what you do, and become a normative part of parenting. And so to that end, they have been supporting what they call our hubs, regional hubs, that provide this parent education to families. Currently, it's a lot of the times it's parents, families in need, but it's available to all within each region. Some regions' hubs are more sophisticated than others, have more resource than others, and they're working to build them all up, but they are in different iterations of effectiveness, for lack of a better word. There are 3 types of hubs. You have hubs that provide direct services, meaning direct parent education. You have hubs that provide grants and funding to other parent organizations to then, parent educators to then disseminate the parent training. Or you have a third, which is a hybrid, a little bit of both. What else? They get their funding. They're a philanthropic organization. They get their funding from a number of sources. There are Ford Family Partners, OSU, Collins Foundation. They've also gotten money via the Student Success Act. They recently were awarded $4 million per biennium from for parenting programs and early education. They got another $3 million biennium from DHS, more specifically their SSP population, for parent education for school-age children. The OPEC, one of their main duty is to organize these hubs and stand up the hubs, but also to provide parent educators with continued education. They also bring the hubs together on a regular basis in order to learn best practices and support each other. And they have their own OPEC training academy for people who are individuals who want to learn or want to become a parent educator. That is what I have in summary so far. There was so much more in addition to. Are there any holes, Tony, you or Pam want to fill?
Quick question. OPEC, is it administered by OSU? I'm confused.
I believe it's grants from Ford Family Foundation and the Oregon Community Foundation primarily. And I think that they said Meyer Memorial Trust put some money into it, and you said Collins?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what Mary Louise McClintock of Oregon Community Foundation said is that foundations traditionally work to try and get something going, but they don't intend to provide sustaining funding for these things. So that, they put a lot of money into these hubs, and I've made a lot of progress with them. But I think they point to the money that they apparently influenced the legislature to put in that Tori mentioned as, that's ultimately the infrastructure is state funding. Yeah. I was impressed. I think that they're gone far beyond what I thought was there. And, when we set out to say, well, is there a system for parenting and so on? If there's a system, it's certainly OPEC is the leading edge of that system. at the same time, I wanted to get a sense of what of how well connected the evidence-based family interventions are. And so I've been in contact with Marian Forgach, and one of the people that works with her, Laura Rains, and I just emailed her about whether or not the Oregon Parent Management Training Program, which is being funded by the state, and it has been promoted by this woman whose name I've forgotten. I sent it to you in an email, who is at OHA and has been a champion of this program. And Laura says, I sent her the information we got from OPEC, and she said, that seems like a valuable resource. We may have had tangential contact with OPEC through OSU, but we're not involved with OPEC. We don't believe any of our OSLC programs keep TIFCO and KITS. Well, KITS is a program that Catherine Piers has, and that is one that they mentioned today. But anyway, they don't believe they've been involved, but you may want to contact them. We will do that. As far as organizations providing family interventions, Options Counseling and Deschutes Behavioral Health provide Generation PMTO individual delivery services to families. Oregon Community Programs provides the same this is Marion's program, PMTO, group delivery services to families. And Lori Theodoro and Chelsea Holcomb have been champions for our full transfer model throughout Oregon. And Lori Theodoro is the person I was mentioning who's at OHA. So that's adding to what we know about it.
Chelsea is as well.
Is she? Okay. So where do we go from here?
Can I ask? So I looked up Steve Allen, and over the weekend, and on the website they did not have any contact information. So I then found him on LinkedIn, and I sent him a message. And I will call the office today to see if I can get his actual work email and send that the questions and such to him. But I have a question for you on your little agenda, on the agenda in the chart section. What is nurse family partnership referred to?
Let me first say that Steve Allen is a different Steve Allen who runs Options Counseling. It's not the head of OHA.
Right. Actually spelled.
Yes. And so what was your question? Nurse family partnership? Yeah, that's one that I was unsure how much that's being done in Oregon. I wasn't sure that it was still being done, but apparent from what they said, it is. Nurse family partnership is a program where nurses contact high-risk pregnant moms during their first pregnancy and work with them during the pregnancy and the first 2 years of life. And there are 3 randomized trials that have been done of it over the past 30 years. And they showed significant improvements in the well-being of the kids who went into those, even to the point where there were lower levels of delinquency at age 15 for kids who were who were in this nurse family partnership program that's only provided during pregnancy in the first 2 years of life. So it's one of the evidence-based programs.
Hey, Tony, if we're going to use this agenda, can you open it up so I can see it, please? Make it bigger.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay. So again, I think the question is, what should be our next steps relevant to OPEC? It seems to me that ultimately this work group needs to write a set of recommendations for strengthening family services relevant to prevention. And that might, it would certainly lean on a description of the organization that we have in Oregon and the ways in which that could be strengthened. And I indicated to OPEC that we were open to their input and wanted to know what they thought we could do to help strengthen family services. But there's a lot of different possibilities. What are your thoughts? I could use pack sticks if that would further the conversation.
I have a question. So going back, is this to serve what Dr. Richardson said at the beginning of the conversation, the 25% of the population? Is that?
Is what, the nurse-family partnership, or more generally?
More generally, like if we're going to look at prevention programs in the state of Oregon that intervene, you know, families, intervene on families, is it trying to identify the prevention?
Well, as you and other people have pointed out, while poverty is a huge risk factor for substance abuse disorders, it's certainly not confined to them. So we certainly have an interest in ensuring that families who have, you know, the wherewithal to pay for, have insurance coverage and so on, are getting these services.
Okay.
I think we are concerned with that.
Okay.
Now, Dr. Richardson has pointed out that we don't have necessarily the authority to affect what they do, but I think one of the questions we might ask, because I don't know the answer to this, is what is the law in Oregon regarding requirements for insurance, health insurance to reimburse for family services? I suspect that that's currently required, but I think we need to find that out. So we've got initials at the bottom, and I don't know who the various people are. I'm guessing that JC is Jessica, and I just wanted to get, I'd like to get everybody's input on this.
Can you scroll down so we can see it if you're going to keep it up on the screen? Thank you.
Yeah, Tony, it is me. I'm sorry I'm not able to be on video today. And I'm going to own the fact that I actually had one of my students call me with a clinical crisis, so I had to step away from the computer. So I don't know what I'd be offering my thoughts to.
Okay.
Sorry for that.
Okay. How about Claire?
Hello, sorry, I'm having trouble unmuting and getting back on video. Are you just asking for feedback on the questions or the organizations we're contacting? That's my.
I think my question is, what are next steps with respect to our conversation with OPEC?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I have to admit I'm kind of new to this group, so I'm here listening and I know less of the background. But I think, again, continuing to, I really like what you just said about figuring out what the law states around I think we have to figure out what options we have for further supporting OPEC. And again, we know what our common goals are, but how can we better support one another to make sure that we're using this group effectively for enacting change, if there's, what change we can be made, especially when it comes to funding and moving prevention initiatives forward.
Let me ask you a question. You're responsible for substance abuse prevention in Multnomah County, is that correct?
Correct.
How much connection, if any, do you have with OPEC?
None. This
Yep.
is the first I've actually heard of them. So I think, I mean, I like your point. I think, I think being able to better connect the dots between, our prevention coordinators and our family intervention programs is huge.
Okay,
Or family services, not even
thank
intervention.
you.
And Tony, that's exactly what I said. That was my feeling today. It's like they sound like they're doing just this big work, but I'd never heard of them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay, so the next initials I see are GJ, and I'm suspecting that's Jill Gray. And my goodness, she might be the person who could tell us about the law on this.
JG is Jill Gray, and I don't know that I can tell you the law on this.
But I'll bet you could find out.
I probably could.
Well, that would be helpful. So who's KH?
Heather.
Hi, Tony. That's me, Heather. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Chime in if you please.
If I had any expertise on the subject, I would, Tony.
Okay. Well, so let me then go to the next. Dr. Richardson, I put SalemKaiser interest in strengthening families on the agenda because it's a family issue, and I saw that I've got scheduled for a meeting later this week. So I just wondered what your thoughts are about where that's going.
You're muted.
Yeah, I was just huffing and puffing. I wasn't saying anything. Just to give the group, I guess, an idea of what you're talking about. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with SalemKaiser School District because they're interested in working with the commission around developing a pilot. They're interested, as you all may know, school districts are required to have a drug and alcohol prevention plan or intervention plan. SalemKaiser is the second largest school district in our state. They do have one, but they are, like many places, struggling with kids who are coming to school intoxicated, kids who are selling and doing other antisocial behavior on school grounds. And so they had reached out to us to see whether or not the commission and the school district could maybe enter into a pilot to demonstrate some intervention and prevention with their student body. And we've just had a preliminary discussion with them around that. And so it's still under development. It looks like we're going to try to do some type of family intervention program. They seem to express some interest in doing that. And so Dr. Biglin provided a presentation on family interventions that are evidence-based. And so we'll be inviting those folks to come in and present to our group meaning the group at SalemKaiser, which has some efficacy for this group. But I'd like to, Tony, take the opportunity, since I'm speaking, to try to center us back to what really is our goal, which is our focus should be on how do we become aware of family interventions that are most likely to impact substance misuse, right? And I know that you have made the point, and I agree with you, that some of the programs do not directly sort of advertise their work around SUD issues, but you can see that kids who participate in some of these programs either delay or don't get into using substances, or don't get into antisocial behavior, or don't get into delinquency behavior, which are all connected to early onset of SUD issues. And maybe we could come back to how do we promote programs in our state that have evidence family intervention programs that have evidence to reduce SUD, and we take a few of those and really make recommendations that those can be expanded. I think that would take our work a long way moving forward.
To showcase the ones that have clear evidence of impact on substance use. And what I showed at the that meeting with SalemKaiser, there were 16 family interventions, and I think about maybe half of them have evidence of effects on substance use. And then I'd have to check on which ones are being done in Oregon, but certainly the family checkup is one. The Parent Management Training Oregon is one. I'd have to look back at the Triple P.
And for Tony, Triple P.
Say it again.
What does Triple P?
Oh, it's the Positive Parenting Program. It was developed. It's the one that provides very brief help with common behavioral problems in an effort to prevent the development of more serious problems, and it has good evidence of achieving that. I'd have to scrutinize it in terms of its evidence on specifically showing effects on substance use, but I'd be surprised if it doesn't have some of that evidence, because it's been studied in a lot of different projects around the world.
Okay.
So can we agree that that's where we want to move forward in regards to our next step as it relates to OPEC? Identify those family intervention programs that are evidence-based as it relates to SUD prevention?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So that's our next step.
And I'll actually send around the slides I showed at SalemKaiser, but a couple of those I relied on their website for those claims, and I think that given the standard that Dr. Richardson has proposed, that we should go back and actually look at I want to see the results of randomized trials with that outcome. So
Can I just, so looking at this chart and what Dr. Richardson just said, perhaps another a concept that needs to be on this chart is, what are the programs, if the schools have those, I mean, it's an undertaking, but what are they using? If school districts have to have, how did you just intervening on on drug and alcohol use at school? What are the programs that school districts are using?
well, some of them are ineffective, to be quite frank. There's a state requirement that there be instruction about the harms of substance use and so on, and there's no evidence that that has an impact on substance use.
Well, and I would argue that it doesn't, because Oregon is in the toilet. But and I would argue that a lot of them don't do it. They say that they're doing it, and they, you can look through their curriculum, but
Right.
Maybe they need handheld.
There are social emotional learning programs that are not targeting saying, this is about substance use, that do have beneficial impact in preventing substance use. The PACS Good Behavior Game and Cooperative Learning are two of those, and they're in fairly wide, well, as these things go, fairly widespread use, but there could be done many more places.
Okay.
So what are our next steps? Complete reaching out to programs. we had this list, which I put on here, where we're going to do that, and we're in the midst of that, I think is fair to say.
And the Oregon Academy of Pediatrics, are they on the list because we assume that they have some sort of program that they do?
I think it's more to find out what they are, the degree to which they're systematically trying to get their pediatricians to effectively intervene around parenting. You were talking about this in the meeting this morning, that it makes sense that they're a good contact with families, a credible contact with families, but if they don't have a smooth handoff to somebody who can actually help you with that child's problems, it doesn't work. So the Oregon Academy of Pediatrics and pediatricians generally have been pretty focused on a public health approach. So they want to, affect everybody. And I think I should just put myself down as the person to do that, because I know some of the people who are involved there.
And I'm happy to help you. I mean, the stuff.
Okay. I will I will send an email to my wife's cousin, who's a former president of the Oregon Academy of Pediatrics, and I will copy you, and we'll raise these issues with them. And this, of course, is something that OPEC is very interested in as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So as we review the list, are people understanding the assignment? Are they having issues reaching out? Is there anything we could do to support you?
Well, we had Jessica down for Liz Scourin and Beth Stormshack. And Jessica, I ran into Beth Stormshack at the Market of Choice parking lot yesterday. So I had an initial conversation with her about that. But I want to come back to actually I wanted Dr. Richardson to be involved in this conversation, and he's on the phone, so we'll hold off on that.
Okay.
It's an issue of improving the connection between research and practice.
Well, I will just briefly say, and then, yeah, we can defer the conversation later, that I did email Beth and Elizabeth both, and I asked them to get back to us, just because it's a very busy time of the term, to get back to us by December 10th, so prior to our next scheduled meeting. So hopefully we'll hear from them.
Right. I think our ask for them, Dr. Richardson said that hopefully in this meeting with SalemKaiser, there'll be some discussion where we would bring people like Beth and Liz into the conversation. But there's a more general issue, and that is that the better we can align the family researchers with the system of providing services, the better everyone's going to be, the better off everyone's going to be, the families, the researchers, the service providers. And so I will send you, well, I want people to know about the system that exists in the state of Washington, where they meet quarterly, the prevention practitioners, the state agency representatives, and the researchers from the major universities in Washington. And they're much better coordinated than we have here. And so I think we need to look at that model, and we need to see if we can figure out ways to get these groups working together. I would think that somebody like Beth Stormshack or Liz Scourin or others would see an opportunity in doing a randomized trial in SalemKaiser that could not only have an impact on kids there, but could establish effective practices. one of the problems that comes up in family interventions by schools is that you don't have people in the school who are necessarily as skilled as they need to be in working with families. And I have some experience with this because we introduced the family checkup, which is the one that Beth Stormshack works with, where we tried to train family counselors in the schools, and it didn't work very well. But
So-
Beth tells me that they now have an online version of this where all the school has to do is introduce the parents to this online system, and they get high quality intervention. So that's one possibility for what could be done.
So I believe our scope, again, is evidence-based family intervention. So if we go into school-based, we're kind of murking up our scope. And also if we start to discuss research opportunities, I think it's beneficial information, but I think it's secondary. I think first and foremost, getting a grasp on what's available, what's out there. And then once we know that, we could share with those resources these opportunities for research and things of that nature. But again, I think it's secondary to our just really getting a really good grasp and understanding of what's out there as it relates to evidence-based interventions.
So you're feeling like what we should be focused on is a report that describes what's out there.
That, right.
What the system is.
Our questions, right?
Yeah.
What's out there? Where's the funding? And keep it there, and know that there's a term I used to use when I facilitate. We call them parking lot issues. There's something we want to keep and we want to remember, but they just not right now. We'll put those in the parking lot, and after we get our questions answered, we can incorporate those things in later. But if we try to incorporate them now while going, towards our original goal, it will slow the process.
Okay, so will you please start a parking lot?
I will.
All right, thank you. So I'm not sure where we're at. I think we may have gone as far as we can go. We've talked about moving forward on contacting the people in this list, and painting a picture of what's out there. What do other people think?
Understanding what we're trying to do, the nurse family partnership, does that fit the criteria, what they do?
Yeah.
I would have, given the standard that Dr. Richardson laid out, I would have to look further at that. I put that on my to-do list to look at that and some of the others as well.
Because when I saw that, Legacy Emmanuel has a trauma nurses talk tough program, and prevention and outreach education led by Shelley Campbell. So when I saw that, my brain went there because Shelley is, I don't know if anyone else is familiar with her. She travels around and talks about drug and alcohol prevention that is dangerous.
Right. No, that's a different program.
Okay.
I don't think the Nurse Family Partnership talks about that.
Okay, Claire has her hand up. Go ahead, Claire.
I'm wondering with this list, and again, because I'm newer, this is my first meeting with this group, so you made this list before me. Are there other organizations that are missing? Are we trying to identify those? And what would that look like?
Well, I think we need to, I don't know. I suspect there are other service providers. Yes, I think some of the hubs we were informed this morning are providing direct services. So they're some of the providers, and then the people they contract with are providers. Shauna Tomany, if I understood her correctly, that they have data on the degree to the number of families that are being reached in by each of these hubs.
Mhm.
And I think that that's probably something we want to get, because we can compare that with the population, families in each of those hubs. And we can also come up with some estimates of what proportion of those families are at risk for substance use. And so that would give you a measure. Shauna said that she thought that an earlier estimate that they had was that they're reaching about 5% of the at-risk families, and that's gone up, while they've been working, but how much it's gone up, I don't know. And that's a statistic that would be relevant to what our aspirations should be.
Definitely. But I don't know if Claire got her question answered in regards to the list.
How about if I go around and just ask everybody for any further input, and maybe some feedback about this meeting? So let me start with
Wait, hey, Tony, before you do that,
Jill. We may have lost
Tony?
her.
Tony,
Here.
Jessica.
Tony, can you hear us?
We may have lost her. MG.
Okay. Can anybody hear me? Okay.
I can hear you, yes.
All right, thank you.
Also lost you. You're on mute.
Tony, can you hear me?
You're on mute. And you're probably saying something funny about my leadership of this meeting, so.
Tony, can you hear me? Tony, can you
I don't
hear
have any sound. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can't hear you.
What about now? Can you hear me?
No.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened because we can hear you, but
Well, I have no idea why I don't have sound. I haven't done a thing. I guess I invite you, since you apparently can hear me, to go around and share what you have of thoughts about this meeting and last observations, and I'll try and figure out what's wrong with my sound.
Yeah, Dr. Richardson, what were you going to say?
So I wanted to share with everyone the programs that we think are evidence-based. I mean, I don't want us to recreate the wheel. The programs that Tony's listed are programs we should continue to understand, but we also have another list of programs that, if you just let me take 30 seconds and share them with you real quick, that I think we could make recommendations. Here they are. I hope you guys can see my screen. These are programs that Tony presented a couple of weeks ago to our SalemKaiser pilot group. And we'll out to you guys so you'll have this. But I think if these programs, I think we could hear from the folks who are doing this work in Oregon and really make a recommendation around how these programs could help prevent SUD. one that I'm particularly interested in is this parent management training, which is an Oregon model, and the age group that it focuses on is age 3 to 18. And it purports to do all of these things, including the reduction of substance misuse. But there might be others that would be available as well. So I just wanted you guys to see that so that we didn't get too far into recreating what something's already been done. I'll stop sharing now.
Mm-hmm.
Tony, you're back with us. Can you hear us? Doesn't look like it.
No.
Okay. Any
So
thoughts? Go ahead, ma'am.
So those programs that you just shared, who are the entities doing work? Is it county? Yes?
It can be county and state and, programs like yours. So I think it's the variety of all of that.
Okay.
So Claire wrote in the chat, I'm wondering if the Oregon Family Support Network would be another group to reach out to for this information. I would agree.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with the group, but they work to promote mental, behavior, and emotional wellness for families and youth through education with the focus on LGBTQI+.
I think that's great if, again, their work leads to reduction of SUD, right?
Yep.
So Claire, do we know if there are one of the evidence-based programs as it relates to the reduction of SUD or prevention?
To be fair, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm just thinking if it's something, again, if they're working to build support on that kind of primary prevention level of supporting families, particularly, communities that identify as LGBTQI plus tend to have more risk factors similar to, like Tony was saying earlier with folks in poverty. It's just another one of those risk factors that I think we might be able to at least hear what they're doing. And if it may not be a direct goal, but it might be, again, it's like a byproduct, right? Like this is the thing about that I feel like within prevention initiatives, we have a lot that, they could be working on mental and emotional support that also leads to an increase in a reduction in SUD disorder, right? That makes sense.
Do we have any others for any other communities, disproportionately impacted communities? Because maybe we can make a list specifically for those.
I'm also curious, I don't want to take up other space, but when I looked at that list of interventions, those evidence-based interventions, I'm wondering, do you have those that are culturally specific, any culturally specific evidence-based interventions? I know when I've looked in the past, there aren't very many in general. So, okay.
Well, we have this one, so I thought maybe there was others like this.
Yeah, I was just thinking programs in general for working on that, but also thinking about like our coalitions that are working with communities of color. Again, I don't think those focuses are necessarily on reducing SUD, but again, if they're individuals we could be working with, and that might be a parking lot thing, but groups that we can be working with to elevate and identify either how to work with the evidence-based interventions we already have and make them culturally responsive and appropriate, or how do we develop and initiate developing evidence-based interventions for other communities that are at higher risk.
Tony, can you hear us now?
I can.
Awesome. So you should likely mute your laptop so there's not an echo. Okay, can you hear us now?
I can.
Perfect. There's no longer an echo. Okay, great discussion. So I don't know if you recognize what was happening, but really quickly, Dr. Richardson put up the slides you showed at our meeting with the SalemKaiser School District and Superintendent, and was saying, which you already know, those are some evidence-based family interventions, and maybe they could or should be added to our chart if not already there. Your thoughts on that?
Makes sense to me.
Okay. Okay.
What we can do is crosswalk that chart with what's available in Oregon and eliminating the ones that don't have clear evidence of impact on substance use.
Okay.
All right, let's bring us to a close. Go ahead, Tori.
Okay. So I think we have our next steps as it relates to our chart. We will. We also have started building our parking lot. Is there any confusion, questions in regards to our next steps? No? Okay. Well, I think I'll get our meeting notes out to everybody in the next few days, so you'll have those to reference as well. And I'll see you all Thursday at our prevention subcommittee meeting.
Thank you, everybody. Hey, Tori and
Thank-
Tony, can you guys stand by? Just stay on the line.
Sure.